We closed the largest woman-led deal in the entire country last year in Arizona, which I'm very excited about. That was 131.5 million, 432 units. So it was a big asset, institutional quality. That asset was just great because we assumed a loan that had a 2.77% interest rate, fixed for 12 years, with 7 years of interest only remaining on it. I mean, you can't beat that. I would do that deal every day and twice on Sunday. What our buy box has shifted to now a little bit more is we've actually brought down the threshold of purchase price of the asset. And the reason for that is because...
What was the biggest obstacle you faced then in going from a single family investor to a multifamily investor?
I think it's the same obstacle I still face now, which is mindset, right? That's, I think, the one thing that all entrepreneurs, regardless of where you are, whether you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur, you've had a successful business, successful as exit, I think it's always thinking about what that next level is. It's the mindset, the imposter syndrome, the questioning of like, can I do this? Should I be doing this? Just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. And so I think for me, that's always been the thing that has been the hardest for me, but it's something I actively work on. And now I work on it more intentionally.
What do you mean? How do you actively work on overcoming a limiting mindset or imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so I have a coach that I work with now. Her name's Rosie Noel. She's incredible. And she does something called Clifton Strengths. I don't know if you've heard of it. If you haven't,
Sure.
highly recommend this.
Yeah.
And I did it years ago. And then I got the report, I read it, and I never did anything with it. And then I was like, maybe I should look into this. So I went back, I started booking calls with her. I coach with her twice a week now. That's how much I put the intensity level into this. And I coach with her because what I've discovered is a lot of times, especially in corporate America, people will be like, oh, but what are your weaknesses? Where are your opportunities for growth? Like, how can we take your weaknesses and turn them into a strength? And Rosie's kind of like, no, screw that. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take your strengths, we're going to super juice them and 100x them, and you're going to lean into that. And then you're going to take all your weaknesses and you're going to go find your partners that have those as their strengths. And you're going to go and you're going to collaborate with them. And then you don't have to make those strengths, your weaknesses, your strengths. You can just lean into the thing you're already really good at. And by just doing that and making that like simple switch, it is so much better because I can operate more confidently. I see better results as a result of the mindset work that I've been doing. I see better results just from our output at our business. Now I feel like I can raise capital so much more effectively and efficiently because I'm using my strengths to do that. My top three are competition, communication, and winning others over. Those are my top three.
Competition, communication, and winning others over. What were you working on? What were some of the weaknesses you felt like you needed to work on?
I am not very deliberative, so I'm not someone that takes a lot of time to like think about things. I have low adaptability, low harmony. Basically, all the things that are the top qualities for my husband are my bottom qualities. So I really already went out and married the person that's the best fit for me, but he doesn't want anything to do with real estate. So he does his thing, I do mine. But even in my partnerships, our team is a very well-balanced team with all four domains represented.
Very nice. What role in a multifamily business, what role, if any, do you mentioned about capital raising? Is that your named role, or is that the role in the GP that you have because of these strengths, competition, communication? I think you said convincing others or something like that.
Winning others over. Yeah. Woo.
Winning others over.
Yeah. The woo is the third one. So it's yeah.
I just got it.
I know it took me a while too, so I get it. So it is the role that I enjoy the most. And it was kind of an accident, I think, but I don't think it was actually an accident because I was just naturally good at these things because of my top three strengths. So by leaning into them, I can just raise more capital more effectively, more efficiently. I can strategize. We can spend money and time and energy and resources toward pushing this up versus trying to like make this thing that I'm probably never going to be good at good.
Makes sense. I think on your first deal that you raised capital for was about 1.6 million. Does that sound right? 1.2, excuse me. And then later you raised $50 million in, I think, 8 weeks.
I did. We just closed out a $66 million raise.
Delineate for me, I mean, experience, more funding behind you. I get that. I want to kind of cut through the obvious ones. So But what are some other things for you as a capital raiser that are applicable and got you to be able to raise 50 or 66 million that even a new capital raiser could apply? What's some of the lessons early
Yes.
that allowed you to raise later that somebody can apply right now? The key to life, it isn't money, it's happiness. And when you measure how happy you are, you actually become even more happy. Our friends at Gobundance, the Tribe of Millionaires, use a very specific tool to measure their happiness. It's called the Life Happiness Index. And you can have it too. Go over to gobundance.com/LHI and take your Life Happiness Index assessment. You'll rate yourself in multiple categories on exactly how happy you are and get a custom output for you specifically that you can use in developing whatever goals you have for your life. Gobundance is the tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous people who choose to live epic lives. And the tool Gobundance members use at the base of all of that is the Life Happiness Index. Get out there and grab life big.
Okay, number one hack, regardless of how much you're raising, raise the money before you have a deal. If you have a deal, it is way too late for you to go out and try to raise money. And what I mean by that is when I was raising $1.2 million, I treated it like an MLM where I'd be like, hey, Susie, we haven't talked since we sat next to each other in math class in second grade. Do you want to invest $100,000 in this deal? It's a great opportunity. And she's like, no. Like I got like block or no or whatever, because I was approaching it from a very like technical and desperate point of view.
Yeah.
But that was because I already had a deal and I had a deadline I had to close, and she could sense that I was, like thirsty, as the kids would say, right? Like I was so thirsty for her to invest. And so now we don't do that anymore. Now, when I don't have a deal, I'm building my relationships, I'm putting in the work and energy and effort. So by the time I have a deal, the only thing that I need to do is send them the deal metrics for that project. So like units, where it is, what the purchase price is, all the details that are deal specific. They have already vetted me. They've already vetted my company. They've already vetted our strategy. They already know that they're interested. They're just waiting for the right project to come along. And so if I could go back and redo it all, I would have done that legwork before I have a deal. Then once you have the deal, it's really simple because they're already prepped and ready to go. They just need the small amount of information to make a good decision. And then you send them the deal information, make it very cohesive, comprehensive. And then the other thing, this is an obvious one, but be transparent. Like share what is happening in real time with your investors. Investors appreciate the trust and transparency that you can build with them.
I love that. The first time I don't have a long track record of raising capital, but for a year and a half or so I have. And the first time I sought to raise capital, I thought I conservatively went into it with, well, I have this many people. And maybe only this percentage, I can get 1% of them to invest X, right? And I was grossly overcalculated.
Yes.
And I talked to a lot of people about that when they're starting to raise capital, they use the same sets. Like whatever the number is you believe that's ultra conservative that you can raise, cut it by 10%.
Yep.
Right? Like meaning like cut it to 10%. Whatever you think you can raise $1 million easily, or not easily, but like based on your network, you probably can raise $100,000 easily, right? And the rest is going to take some effort.
Agree. There was a time where there was a much higher conversion rate when, everyone was doing real estate and rolling in the dough and times were good. And now it's significantly harder. So before we used to say about 50% more, double what you need in soft commitment. So if you need $1 million, you have to soft commit or raise 2 million and then just accept the first $1 million. Now that number, I don't know that it's 10%, but when you're starting out, that's probably a really good number. Sure. Now we still look for like 50 to 60% overshooting in what we need versus what we should actually raise.
You're on the $50 million raise. I think you said you had about 100 investors in that. Is that right? 50 million invested, 100 investors?
Yeah, a little more than 100. So we have a lot of family offices and funds.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. But our average check size, if you take out the large check writers, is 178,000.
That's big. So is that intentional, or is that just over time? Like, is that something you could start with, going to the bigger investors? Like, I've just thoughts on that.
Yeah, if you structure the deal properly, absolutely. So what you want to do is we came up with a method, we call it the Cinderella method, right? Where we have created share classes which incentivize larger check writers at the 500K and above level. It gives them extra returns. The way to kind of think about it just mentally is it's a GP economic sharing or a GP like fee discount, if you will. And
Can you give
so,
an example? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you up, but
yeah,
can you maybe just run through like an example of that, what you mean by that?
absolutely. And just disclosure's sake, this is not an offering of securities, right? We're just talking about this for educational purposes
Yep,
only.
yep,
But an
100%.
example of that would be, let's say in a new PPM I'm putting out, I say, okay, anybody who writes me a check of over whatever the number, 500K, a million, it doesn't matter, 500K, will get a 3% share discount. So you really are only wiring me 485,000. You're instantly realizing a $15,000 return the second you wire me funds. So that's one. Maybe I discount the asset management fee. So maybe instead of paying a 2% asset management fee, you pay a 1% asset management fee. Or I could do something like I could give you an extra 10% of the GP allocation. That profit can then be split prorated amongst the larger check writer share classes. There's so many ways to structure it. You could also do it where you have a different pref, you have a different hurdle. Sometimes we'll have a family office who will approach us, and they always want special terms. So they'll say, like, we want, instead of a 6% pref, we want an 8% pref, and we want an 80-20 split straight through, or
Mm,
whatever that looks like for them. And there's a negotiation back and forth on those, but there's different ways to structure it. And the check size, average check size, is an active KPI that we track because it's the thing that I'm always trying to increase. So when I first started, when I was raising 1.2 million, our average check was closer to 26,000.
right, right, right. So these incentives, do you feel like they're the direct correlate to you raising, what do you say, 178,000 per residential, or not residential, but non-institutional investor?
Yes.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't think I've heard of that level of incentive for the bigger the check. I mean, there's definitely some pref. I've heard of, we've done some pref, enhanced pref for a higher raise, but we would
Yeah.
call that a share. It might be like a B share versus a C share or something like that, where
Yeah.
if you come in at 250 or 500, you get an accelerated pref or maybe a better split.
Yeah.
But you're going even further with some of the stuff. So that's really interesting.
Every now and then I have a good idea, and that might have been my one good idea.
Can you talk a little bit about the fund Vibe, the
Mhm.
structure of it, as far as
Mhm.
the people, the GP structure, how
Yeah.
you're doing? You said there's four in it. Can you give me a little bit of a breakdown on what the structure looks like?
For in what?
In
Tell us.
Vive, there's four GPs.
Oh, no, no, no. Okay, no, no, no. Sorry. I'm not sure what I said that made you think that, but that's my fault. Okay. So we actually have one co-GP that we work with. We JV with them on every deal. That's our JV partner. Within Vive, it's actually just myself and my sister are the two owners, and we're the only GPs in the deal. And then, we obviously have property level staff, company level, asset management level staff. And so it takes a whole team to make this work. I by no means am saying it's just my sister and I doing this, but we're the principals in Vive.
Principals, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. You had been targeting Class B, say 75 million plus in purchase
Mhm.
price, 250 doors, and all the states, right? The Texases, the Floridas, the Carolinas, the Arizonas, all of that, which is smart. Is that still your buy box, or have you modified it all in this market?
For the most part, yes, with the asterisk. So last year we closed, actually we closed the largest woman-led deal in the entire country last year in Arizona, which I'm very excited about. And
Very
that was
cool.
131.5 million. Thank you. That was 131.5 million, 432 units. So it was a big asset, institutional quality. That asset was just great because we assumed a loan that had a 2.77% interest rate fixed for 12 years with 7 years of interest only remaining on it. I mean, you can't beat that. I would do that deal every day and twice on Sundays. What our buy box has shifted to now a little bit more is we've actually brought down the threshold of purchase price of the asset. And the reason for that is because right now there's a lot of, what Wall Street calls smart money. There's a lot of smart money coming into multifamily assets. And it's making it really tough to compete sometimes because they have credit facilities. They can buy these in cash and close in 2 weeks. We still have to raise our capital. And so what we are doing now is we're going to like 50 to 80, $100 million assets, which are still sizable and decent, but it's a lot harder for smaller or newer operators to compete there. Starwood and Blackstone, they don't care about those deals. They're not doing those deals. They want like $100 million plus deals. And so now we're competing in this space where we're kind of a little bit of a big fish in a small pond. And I do think a lot of our deals in the coming several months are going to be more off market deals or word of mouth deals.
The deal in Arizona, you said 135 million. That
Well,
was the
131, yeah.
131 million. What
Yeah.
was the seller's incentive to have you assume it? What was their why did they do that? They have great debt. Why get rid of it?
So they had actually already completed their business plan, and the way we actually got that asset was completely off market, so we didn't compete with anyone for it, which is why the numbers worked for us. But what happened was they were selling another asset, and we were like the third or fourth offer on it, and they really liked working with us in that capacity, and we were like, well, like, what else do you have in your portfolio? Because we're young, we're hungry, we're going to be buying for a long time, and they're a pretty sizable institution. And they were like, okay, we like this, we can make this work. And so they said, we'd be interested in selling you other assets. We pulled all of their assets. And we said, we like this one. What does this look like? And then went back and forth, negotiated on it. And actually, we have another deal from the same seller off market that we are likely going to put under contract in the next couple of weeks because of the
Wow.
relationship.
Well, talk about that to get to the level you have. You have a lot of sellers that probably like working with you. So,
Yeah.
what is it with this? You said they liked working with you.
Yeah.
Why? Is that intentional? Is it just a
Yes.
vibe thing? Like, what does that look like?
No, very intentional. Anytime we are transacting on a deal, whether we're buying or selling, it does not matter. We always try to be easy to work with. We always want the reputation of easy to work with. Now, that doesn't mean we're a pushover. I like to negotiate and I'm decent at it, right? So some of the things that we like to do is we like to lower the bar wherever we can get a win that's like minimal or no risk for us to do. We take every opportunity to do that and really build goodwill out of the gate. But I think if you talk to most of the sellers that have worked with us or even the buyers that have worked with us, they'll say, oh, no, they're very easy to work with because we don't make demands. We generally don't retrade. We don't come in and change things in the 11th hour. We say what we're going to do and then we do it. And if we can't, for some reason, we communicate that. It's like all about communication, really. People just want to know that you care about them, you care about the deal, and that you're working toward a common goal, which is a close.
That makes sense. Also, the way you raise capital, you said, right? You're
Yeah.
keeping in constant touch with the
Yes.
investors ahead of the need to raise and so
Yeah.
on. Your profile says that you provide conservative investments to your investors. What does conservative mean?
It's kind of a BS term that everyone says because, like, literally nobody has gone out and been like, hey, this is a super aggressive pro forma and we don't think we're going to hit any of these numbers. Do you want to invest? So it's like just this bullshit word that we all use.
Sure.
For us, what conservative actually means is we stress test the asset. We really are focused on protecting downside. And then we just let the upside take care of itself. Thank you, Sam Zell, for putting that thought in my head very early on, right?
Yeah.
But that's how we approach our investments. And there was a time like back in 2020, 2021, we were underwriting to an interest rate increase year over year, month over month. The amount of investors that thought we were psycho for saying interest rates were going to go up was astonishing. And we were like, look, the good news is if we're wrong and they stay low or they go down to what, zero? I don't know. But if they stay low, then you're just going to make more money. This is a
Right.
worst case scenario. The irony of it is now with hindsight being 2020, even our underwriting was not conservative enough for what we actually saw in the market and this sharp spike in interest rates.
Nobody's was. Nobody's was. Yeah.
Nobody's was. And so
Yeah.
our deals have fared a whole lot better than probably a lot of competitors in the market. But those are tweaks that we're constantly making. We're constantly looking into. Always seeing like if we pull this lever, what's the worst case scenario? And kind of our North Star at our company of everything we do is guided by how does this affect investors? How does it affect their experience? How does this affect their returns? Everything. That is where we start and stop every conversation in the company. Something as small as when we did a rebrand, right? Like the company colors, how does that affect the investor experience? And we put a lot of time and energy into that because it matters so much. Our LPs are the heart of our business.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really good. I like that. That's very granular. When you say, well, let me ask it this way: from a conservative standpoint,
Yeah.
debt. When you take on debt, so yeah, I understand that you underwrite to a more conservative exit cap rate or higher interest rates
Mhm.
for that matter, which most do. But to your point, might be conservative is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
But no one could foresee the
Yeah.
spike, and no one underwrote to where rates went to.
No.
So for you, I think you're saying you're riding through. I would assume that means your debt terms are fairly conservative as well, meaning not so much bridge, more long-term debt, maybe with options to extend. But are you locked in on it from a debt perspective? Is that your standard your standard way of acquiring?
Generally, yes, we do have assets in our portfolio that do have bridge debt on them. They have pretty significant runway ahead of us to see kind of where the market goes, allow cap rates to compress. We're starting to see a little bit of compression
Yep.
to let the asset NOI grow. Like when you look at the NOI on every asset, all of our portfolio, with the exception of our one redheaded stepchild, every asset in our portfolio is crushing the NOI. Everything that we're seeing, any of the pressure we're seeing is all below the line. It's all in the debt market. So to answer your question, yes, we have fixed rate debt. We also have bridge debt, but we have a lot of runway on it. We have options to extend, and we start planning 18 to 24 months before our debt expires if there is a rate cap to see, okay, how are we buying down the next rate cap? When's the right time to buy down the next rate cap? Are we going to exit at this time? What are the exit options? Are we going to just recap our investors out? There's so many different ways that you can exit an asset. And so we're looking at all those things, and we re-underwrite our deals every month almost, but generally at least every quarter.
The rate caps. It's interesting to see that a lot of rate caps purchased were just purchased, but they were purchased more like, I'm just going to put a rate cap in. Doesn't matter if you lose, if you're making money at that rate cap. We're just putting a rate cap in. And to be honest with you, I think for a lot of investors, just this is, I think, a lesson going through this correction or whatever it is in multifamily. I think a lot of investors, limited partners that got on a phone with somebody raising capital,
Yeah.
they just needed to hear rate cap. That was it.
Yes.
It was enough for them to invest. Whereas now, I think we're getting a little bit more, LPs are getting a little more savvy smartly. And I'm glad
Yeah,
to
me
say,
too.
well, where's the rate cap and what happens to cash flow if you hit that rate cap? So are your rate caps in advance purchased to cash flow, or are they just purchased to make sure that a doomsday scenario doesn't take place?
Yeah, and I think that that's absolutely the right sentiment for this point in the market cycle. Again, when you're looking at 2020, 2021, even early 2022, it was hard to imagine that rate caps were really going to affect the NOI, or the free cash flow, I should say, below the NOI. And now it's easy for us to see that, hindsight's always 2020. For us, the name of the game right now is more around assumable debt with really good debt products and fixed terms for a longer runway. Does that always happen? No. And sometimes there is a reason to either put fresh debt on, even in this environment, or to do a bridge loan still, especially if there's a heavy value add component. It's just, all these problems that come up, if you know about them ahead of time, you can solve for them, right? I don't care if there's a $1 million plumbing issue. If I know about it ahead of time, I can plan for it. So
Yeah,
that's fine. But it's when you're surprised by it that's when it hurts.
100%. What's the redheaded stepchild? What have you learned about
Um,
that one? Anything you could prevent or?
so no, because a lot of it is market conditions, and this asset has its own very unique challenges. One of the big challenges was there was a CARES program on the asset local to that market that was never notated in any of the leases, so we couldn't see it in the lease audit. We found out 3 months after we took over that asset. The county sends a letter saying, in 1 week, we're stopping this supplemental CARES Act program. We're like, okay, doesn't really affect us because we didn't think we had any of these tenants there. Turns out we had more than 10% of the property. I think it was like 20% of the property had this CARES Act check coming in, which is essentially like a supplemental check for them. All of these tenants who had qualified based on that, and it showed in the T12 that they were fine when we took over, are now non-paying tenants.
Oh boy.
And so we're
Yeah.
like, great. And usually when these CARES programs end, they give you like 3 months, they give you like some kind of runway to plan for it. This was like a 1 week notice. And
Oh,
the only way we could have really known about it is if we had known that this program even existed in the first place, but then gone and, I don't know, asked every single tenant if I don't know how we would have known because it never hit our bank account. It was not indicated in any of the leases.
mm,
So, things like that. And then staffing has been a huge issue. This is an industry wide issue that we're seeing on multifamily assets is getting good staff at assets. And what we're seeing is kind of cyclical, right? Someone comes on, it's a lot of work, it's really hard. They're like, you know what? I can get an equally paying job, or I could take a little bit less money, work a little less hard, and go to the asset down the street. I quit. I'm going to do that. And then the remaining people are like, whoa, now we have to fill in this other person that we're missing. And so that's just kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy at some point. So we've been cleaning it up. We've been steadily seeing growth and improvement month over month. I'm actually really impressed with where our asset manager has been able to take it from where it was to where it is now. We're getting back to stability. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, it definitely does not help that interest rates also shot up. And this was one of our bridge debt assets.
Yeah. What is the last purchase that you made? What was the timeline? Have you made one in this cycle? We haven't made one since May of last year, I think it was. That was the
This was
last one.
August of last year,
Yeah.
August
Okay.
2020.
Was that the $66 million raise?
Yeah,
Got you.
yeah, yeah.
Incredible. That's a massive raise. So good for you.
Thank you.
I want to ask this question on capital raising, then I'm going to pivot to another discussion topic. But from a standpoint of actually raising the capital, so you gave some great structure, rigor around what to do in advance, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, get out in front of it, build your list, nurture that list, be really
Yes.
communicative, be ready in advance of an asset coming due. When you actually make the ask, and now this could be in any way, whether it's getting on the phone, and I
Mhm.
think from what I've seen of what you do now, like you may not even have to anymore
Yeah.
get on the phone. You might be able to do it in advance, but
Yeah.
let's start with that. If you are getting on the phone, what are
Mhm.
some things that a capital raiser or that you've learned as a capital raiser, tips,
Mhm.
tricks, whatever, that people could benefit from hearing from you?
First is know your investor avatar. If you speak to everybody, you're speaking to nobody, because what the physician family cares about is very different than what the engineer cares about, and it's different than what the stay-at-home mom cares about. It's different than what I said the engineer already, the real estate investor cares about, right? Each of them are different avatars. So when I'm talking to a physician family, right, I'm talking about how conservative our numbers are, and I'm showing them exactly in that model why they're conservative. So I'm not just saying, oh, we are conservative like it says on our website, right? I'm saying we're conservative and let me show you how.
Mm,
We believe that rents can do $200 post renovated premium. We've underwritten for $100. So if we're off by 50%, no harm, no foul, these are still the numbers. If we do better than that, your numbers will improve. So you're talking about how conservative they are. You're talking about tax efficiency. You're talking about financial freedom, right? Those are the things that a physician cares about. When you're talking to an engineer, you better have your numbers. You better know exactly what your equity multiple is. You better know what your post renovated rents are. You better know what your average unit count is on each floor plan. You have to know all of your numbers because they're highly analytical. Obviously, there are people that don't necessarily fit these
right.
buckets or boxes.
No, but that's pretty good. Yeah.
Generally, this
Right.
is going to be true, right? And so you need to really drill down on who your investor avatar is. I actually spent a ton of time putting together a whole entire avatar workbook, because this is the level of thought you should be putting into it.
Oh,
And
very cool.
then when you're on the call, you already kind of know the direction and you can steer the conversation to hit the pain points that they're going to feel so that they can make a good decision for their portfolio.
Interesting. Is this a sales training? Do you go through that? Because there's a lot of intentionality in that. Have you leveraged like sales training to have these conversations?
I didn't. I feel like I should have maybe, but I never did. This was actually something that I developed in hindsight. I didn't realize that this could have totally changed how I raised that first $1.2 million. But it wasn't until I'd raised like maybe 150 million that I was like, oh, wait, there's a method to this madness. There's a pattern. And by spending time putting this down on paper, it was something that I could leverage and give to someone else to replicate the results after the success, not before the success when I was like crying every night in my bed.
No, but that's really cool because I think that's like on a broad spectrum. There's so many people that me included that want to do different things. Like I wanted to quit my job, I this, I that, whatever. And I think sometimes it's like I got to know the pattern before I take the action. But what you're saying, what I'm hearing, and it's true, is I created the action and then it revealed the pattern, and
Yeah.
then you documented it, or then you took the pattern down. But
Yeah.
I think that's a really key piece when I talk to a lot of high performers like yourself. They just sort of stumble forward. You just
Yeah.
sort of stumble forward, and then
Yes.
at some point you say, "Hey, I could lay this out, line it up, and actually teach somebody else how to do it." But you
Yes.
wouldn't know until you actually took action.
100%, because you'll hear a million different things from a million different people who raise capital, right? The question is does their vision and do their morals align with you? Because there are people that will raise capital that have no business raising capital. They are raising on aggressive deals. They're not being transparent. They don't have any plan to manage this. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. After we're done, that's not our problem. We got our
Right.
fees. We're good. I don't like that. That is very much the short game, right? I actually just added it up. Like as of 2 weeks ago, we've raised $374,315,000 across all of our assets. And you can't do that if you don't approach everything with a strategic and investor first mentality.
Who gave you the $15?
$315,000. I've had
Respectfully.
investors like that before. I know we're laughing, but I have investors that are like, "Can I invest $173,324?"
Is there
No,
some sort
you
of
may not.
calculation
I don't
for
know. I feel like they're like, "Oh, this is all the cash I have available." I don't know how they do it or why they do it, right?
That's funny.
But I'm like, "No, you may not. You may invest 175,000 or you may invest 170,000, but I'm not
Right.
willing to go to the dollar for you."
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. So a year ago or so, flipping over to you building a brand and community, a year ago or so, I heard you say something that I don't know if you still stand by. Let's see if you do.
Oh, uh-oh, okay, let's see.
I don't really like social media and creating content. I heard that. Is that still true today?
Yes.
And if okay, and then tell me why you do it.
I do it because okay, so I'm a huge extrovert, right? I've never there's no strangers. They're just friends I haven't met yet, right? Like I'm that annoying person that if you're an introvert and you sit next to me on a plane, you may hate your life for the next 3
Mm,
hours. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me because it's not about how you feel about it, it's how I feel about it, and I wanna people with you, and you're my hostage now.
I want to people with I like that. Okay.
Right, and I actually may or may not have said the other day to my 2 introverted friends, they were like, "Oh, yeah, no, I want the window seat." I'm like, "The window seat? Why would you ever sit in the window seat?" And they're like, "Oh, because then I can sleep on the window, like, I can lean against it." I'm like, "No." They're like, "Why do you want the aisle?" It was like, "Because I can control the person next to me, and I can basically force them to talk to me until I'm like, 'Okay, now you may get up to use the bathroom,'" right? Like, I'm like, I love this because I can talk to them more. And so for me, yes, I do love to people. Social media allows me to do that, and it allows me to stay connected with a lot of people at once, which fills my cup. I hate content creation, and the reason why is because I hate being like this when I'm at dinner and looking and experiencing people that are right in front of me through a camera lens. Like that's not the thing I want to do. So you will rarely see me at a dinner with anybody unless like my kids or with like a sitter or something like that. You will rarely see me with my phone out. I always try to like put it away. I don't even leave it on the table because I don't want to be tempted by it. I want to live in the moment. I want to enjoy the people around me. I want to immerse myself in the experience. I'm so bad at remembering to take photos. And so now I have like a whole team and that's how I produce as much content as I do and thank goodness for them because I can't do it without them.
But why do you? What is
Why
the
do I do
benefit
it?
that you're seeing? What's the ROI?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So a couple of different things. It depends like which form of social media is being consumed, but generally speaking, I can connect better. This is relationship building. I've raised a lot of capital by creating relationships through people that I've met on social media. It is the easiest way to build a relationship with someone you wouldn't otherwise find in a room with you. It is the
Mm,
fastest way. I mean, you and I built our relationship off social media. We wouldn't
true.
be here without that, right? And
Yeah.
we have mutual friends, but I don't think we would have discovered that unless we were
Without it.
connected on social media. And so
That's
it's a
true.
very powerful tool and it's the great equalizer, right? It gives people who don't normally have a voice, it gives them a voice, it gives them a platform. That's also the downfall of social media is everyone has a platform, but it's the benefit of it too.
What is the what when you're posting, what is the intention of your content? Like how do you go about the process of creating?
So my intention is always to deliver value. If it's on social media and it's being consumed, I firmly believe that it should deliver some kind of value. We were just talking about my lives on Instagram that I've been doing. That for me is not just delivering value, but also for me to practice speaking so I can be a better speaker, so I can be stronger, so my voice gets better, so I learn how to go through ups and downs and inflections. The other thing I've learned from doing my lives, which has been challenging for me, and it's one thing I really wanted to get better at, which is going off on a complete tangent and then coming right back to where I was and keeping on going. Like Pace Morby is the king of this, right? Like he's the king of tangents. And I study the way he speaks. Every time I get an opportunity to listen to him speak, I record it because I listen to the things he says, how he's speaking, how he even remembers to come back to where he was. I mean, it's incredible. And I've gotten better over it because it's a muscle, right? And I've been using it and I've been strengthening it.
Do you feel like you're creating or documenting?
I think I document. I can't
Good.
create.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a creative like that. I can't think of these funny things to say. I can document the things that are happening to me in real time. I can document the knowledge base. I can document what I would tell me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But it's very hard for me to create content. I prefer to document it.
Yeah, I see that. And like you said about Pace with the tangents, I think it's like he's always got cameras, right? He's got two, I
100%.
think, full-time videographers. So
Yes.
an idea comes and he's whiteboarding it and he's
Yep.
shutting car doors and he's just,
Yes.
he's just in the moment.
Yes.
So, his editors do what they need to do with it, but
Sure.
he's just truly documenting.
Yeah.
Whereas like for me, I don't know about you, I don't have a videographer following me around all over the
Right.
place at this point. So
I
I have to,
sometimes do.
like you say, I have to sort of like, oh, you know what, this just happened. Let me figure out the most effective way to document that, that doesn't lose interest and that actually gets some level of reach. So that's been
Yeah.
at least my thing. Go
So
ahead.
what I've been doing is I've been taking my longer form content and podcasts, everything, and my team will go through it and then they'll come up with different hooks or lines that they want me to talk about. And then I batch record everything. So it's all stuff I've said before, but then they'll sit me down in front of a camera and be like, okay, Veena, what was the one thing you wish you knew when you first started? And it's a question I've already answered a million times, right? Then they'll say, okay, Veena, how do you work on your mindset? What do you do to work on your mindset? And then, okay, Veena, you're a mom and a wife and an entrepreneur. How do you balance it all? Right. And so they have all these hooks and they're like, okay, now go change your shirt and let's ask you the next set of questions. So it's all an illusion. I tell people this because they look at my social media and I think young girls are really impressionable too. And I'm like, just so we're clear, I don't wake up looking like this, right? Like I have a whole team that edits me and I'm sure they're filtering me. And I have like all the fillers and Botox. Like this is not normal, just everyday life. And I don't want to be an unattainable standard of, content output or creation or just beauty or any of that. Like I don't want it to be a standard that's unattainable without being truthful about like what this really is.
That makes sense. What do you use Twitter at all or X?
Like kind of my team is on my Twitter. I actually was using Threads for like
Threads.
47 seconds.
Same. I got on there. I did like two of them and then I forgot I had it.
Yeah, same. Like it's not my format of choice. I mean, even for me to do Instagram is really hard because
Yeah.
I don't naturally gravitate to social media. I think it's the challenge too. I'm an elder millennial, so I didn't really grow up with social media. I got it when I was a sophomore in college. I was like one of the college email addresses invited into it. So I was like amongst the first, but I was still a sophomore in college. I had gone through my younger years. And so I think it's just something that our generation and older are just not really used to. But my 70-year-old dad
All over it.
just got onto Instagram like a month ago. And this man with no team, no experience, no knowledge, posts literally every single day almost.
Good for him.
And I'm like, all right, look, if he can do this, there is no excuse for any of the rest of us. Because my dad's like not even tech savvy. He's like,
Yeah.
my SIM card got deleted. I'm like, I don't think your SIM card got deleted, Dad. But
It's ahead of me. I don't even know what a SIM card is, so that's good.
I mean, yeah, he knows very limited information that's not actually accurate or helpful in any way, shape, or form. But he's on Instagram and he'll do lives with me sometimes, and he's just really excited by it because he gets to connect with people and he loves to connect with people. He has like 150 followers, and I'm like, it took me months to get 150 followers.
Yeah. He's blowing up.
He is.
He's blowing up.
He's the man.
Kale Owen, I had on this podcast. He's Alex Hermosi's right hand
Yeah,
guy. So he runs all of his gym
yeah.
brands. I don't know if you've met him or know him or what, but Alex tweets or X's. I don't even know what you say anymore.
He
But
threats.
I guess the threads.
He
So the
threats.
flow is all of that stuff your team sees you talking about on a podcast or whatever. Rather than asking you to record it right out of the gate, they put it on X. They see how
Oh,
it performs, and then the
then
highest performing X tweets, whatever the hell it is, they bring to the creator, to you, and say, "Hey, record these." Just something to think about.
okay. So my team may be doing that. I don't actually know. I don't actually know what the process
I'm not, and I
is.
was thinking about doing it, whether or not we need to. We have a social media manager and a couple of editors, but yeah,
I
it
love
was an
that.
interesting, like, oh, I never thought of that. That's a really, really clever way of doing it. So
I'm going to be
yeah,
sending my team this podcast as soon as it drops and be like, go do the things. We are following the Alex Hermosi model.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk family a little bit. So your husband, you said he's not in the real estate space. What
No,
does he do?
he's a physician, so
He's a
he
physician.
doctors.
Wow.
Yes,
He doctors
he
you
doctors.
people,
I
and he
people, he
doctors.
doctors. Yes, that's actually
Got
very accurate of both of our full entire personalities too.
Now you have twin girls,
I
5
do.
in July, I think.
Yes.
What is
Wow.
it how are you balancing I mean, he's got a busy career. He's not a stay-at-home dad, which I
No,
wondered if he was.
no.
You obviously are everywhere. You know, you're on stages
Yeah,
very frequently. You're doing
yeah,
podcasts live, this, that, and the other. I know there's a sense of guilt, but
yeah.
you're also showing your girls like,
Mhm.
hey, you can be anything you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's the hack to balance for you at this point?
There is no such thing as balance. There is no such thing as a hack because the reality
I love
is
that you
is
said that.
when
Yes.
I'm working, someone else is taking care of my kids. And when I take care of my kids, someone else is taking care of my business. And, I think it would be disingenuous for me to say that I don't make a lot of sacrifices on both sides to make it all work. Um, First thing, especially if you're a mom out there, do not feel guilty hiring out help. You don't get some kind of award for doing all of your own laundry or your own dishes. Hire the things out that you can hire out, even if it's something small, so you can take time to do something that fills your cup. And for me, that's pouring into the Multify community, right? Like, I love my community. I want more hours in a day to just hang out with them and help them do whatever it is that they're working on, right? And so hire out the things. I haven't done a dish in like 7 years, and I'm not sorry. I refuse to do them because I hate it. It's low use of my time. And when I'm at home with my girls, I want to maximize every minute with them. So between 5 and 7:30, if I'm at home, like if I'm in Dallas or my kids are around, I don't do anything. I don't take calls, I don't take meetings, I don't care. I turn my phone off. In fact, I leave it in the other room because I don't even care about it. And I spend that time with my kids and I'm very present because I have to maximize quality over quantity with them. My other rule is if I'm traveling and I'm traveling for more than 4 or 5 days, either I have to come home for one day or I have to fly the girls and my nanny out to meet me. So I do try to balance that a lot. This last week was an anomaly. I was gone for 8 days, which is a very long time for me, but I had back to back to back events in LA and Orange County. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Flying them out there would have just really been for my benefit. It's way too disruptive for their schedules. And so I actually got them on a plane and sent them to Atlanta to go see my sister and my nephews because they can have cousin time. There was like very little guilt because they were having way more fun with their cousins than they would have with me. I'm glad they got that quality time and I didn't feel guilty being there. So, you'll find ways to maneuver around it, but you just have to give yourself permission to like let things go. Your house does not have to be ready for like a Better Homes and Garden shoot at every moment. You don't have to be Martha Stewart. You don't have to have a 5 course meal ready every day. Like, we do a lot of takeout. I have a lot of staff that helps me. I have nannies, I have drivers, I have all 4 grandparents live in our neighborhood on purpose.
Wow.
They're a
Yeah.
10-minute walk from us. They live across the street from each other. Best hack is if you have active grandparents, move them into your neighborhood because it's like free babysitting and trustworthy
Yeah.
babysitting.
Well, is that the so in a few months, about 6 months, I guess, they're going to be kindergarten age. Are you with all that you're doing, are you deciding on homeschool versus putting them in school, and does that
Mhm.
change maybe the potential of your schedule in the future?
Yeah, this like changes with the wind. In my heart of hearts, I would love to homeschool them because I don't think that the school system really teaches you the things that are useful for life skills. I think it teaches you to be an employee, a great employee. And I have bigger dreams than that for my kids. Like, but who knows? My kids are probably going to be like, no, we're just going to be employees and do nothing else. I don't know. But so I would love to homeschool them. The problem is they're already way smarter than me. And I thought I had a few years left and I do not have that time. So we would have to like hire it's called a governess. Did you know this?
I've heard that, but
Okay.
I wouldn't have been the first word that came to
Right.
mind, but yes.
Okay, so it's called a governess. So you would hire a governess, and I would do this especially if there was like a pod that they could socialize with. And Pace was trying to get me to move to Arizona because his daughter is around the same age as my girls. And so he was like, we could have this whole little pod, and Dean Graziosi's kid, and Jeremy Minor and Marta Minor's kid. Like, they're all the same age girls. We can put them in a pod. Like, this is great, except for the part where I have to pick up my whole life and move it to Phoenix. So probably no. But
Right.
so we have thought about homeschooling. For right now, I think we're gonna go the public school route. We'll see. But I'm like flexible about education. I hope my husband doesn't see this because he's like, traditional school is really important. I'm like, is it though? But he's a doctor, so he like really believes in traditional education.
Yeah, you'll have to get him over that.
Yeah.
My kids are 8 and 5. They'll be 9 and 6 soon. And in the States, they went to an Acton Academy. Have you heard of Acton
No,
Academies?
no.
So that you're Dallas based,
Yeah,
right?
Dallas.
So I'm sure they're there. They're all over Texas.
Okay.
It's call it a homeschool alternative. So these pods that you're mentioning, it might be
Yeah.
like that, but you pay a tuition. They go to school. So the one we had in Michigan that we were sending our kids, our well older one and the younger one at the end there, to it. It's there's like we have to write their report card or whatever. Like they're still technically homeschooled, but we get to farm it off to somebody else to do it, and they teach entrepreneurial skills. So like our
Love
kids
that.
made a cider company. They still learn
Love that.
what do they call it? Like reading, writing,
Yeah.
arithmetic, core skills,
Right.
but they do it at their pace. So like our older kid is really good at math. So by 6, he's doing like fourth grade math because he can, right? And then
Love it.
reading, he was kind of on pace for whatever 6 is, but there's no attendance requirement. So again, it's like a homeschool alternative. So like when we
Love it.
travel, we went to Florida for a month or whatever. It's like they said it. They're like, there's life experience in that for them.
Yes.
So we consider that part of education.
Yes, and
So
that's why I'm interested in homeschooling because, like, I'm in really incredible rooms with amazing entrepreneurs. I would rather my daughters come and they be part of those conversations, even though they don't really understand them, right? They're still 4. I would rather they be exposed to that. I do a lot to try to hone their ability to interact with adults in the world. So I never order their food for them ever. Since the moment they could talk, they had to order their own food. My daughter will be like, "Oh, can you ask the teacher this?" No, I can't, but you can do it and I can support you doing it and I can help you. We can practice. I can give you some ideas on how to talk. She's like, "No, but it's so much easier if you do it." I'm like, "I know, because I'm good at it because I've practiced, but you haven't practiced yet. You'll get good at it if you practice." So, like
mm,
things like that. They love a microphone.
mm.
Anytime I brought them to any of my speaking events, they will march right up on that stage. They have zero fear. They will grab the microphone out of my hand. And this is a true story. One of my daughters took the microphone and says, "Stop saying things, mommy. Nobody needs to hear this."
In
Thank
front of
you.
a bunch of people.
Oh, into the microphone. Yes. On a stage.
Wow, not an empty room.
Nope. Nope. No.
On stage, full room.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Wow,
And
that's awesome though. That'd be a top moment. That's a memorable moment for you, meaning people will remember you forever for that reason.
yes, I mean, yes, that is definitely true. I got a lot of comments after. It was a very cute moment, but it was like, baby, I realize you don't recognize the value that I'm bringing to this conversation right now. People literally pay me tens of thousands of dollars for me to say these things. So,
Yeah.
love you. Now go sit down. But
Uh,
I love speaking. So, I always give them an opportunity to speak on a stage with me because,
Yeah.
yes, it's hard because I don't want like the perception of it being unprofessional, but it's more important to me. Right now, my daughters are not afraid of public speaking. This is the number one fear of people, of adults.
Yeah.
They're more afraid of public speaking than death. And my kids clearly do not have that. And so I want to encourage it. I want to hone it. I bought them like they have a little microphone at home. Actually, my brother-in-law gifted it to them. And I have them sing into it and perform and give us speeches. And, they know we talk about money and we talk about business. Ever since they were like 2 years old, we started talking about business concepts at home. And I really want to reinforce that more.
I like that. Talk about the rooms. So you've talked about, I think early on, you never paid for mentorship, never paid for masterminds, anything like that. And then later you kind of got behind the paywall and realized like, oh my God. So let me frame the question this way.
Yeah.
If you're starting out or early stage or, in the beginnings of your career, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
and you got some money to invest,
Yeah.
would you allocate an amount of money to join the mastermind? Or would you say, look, find the mentorship and go all in with your cash on buying the asset?
I would have found the mentorship if I could go back and redo it. Simply because I am convinced now it could have saved me a lot of heartache. I could have learned a lot. I could have made a lot fewer mistakes than I've made in my career. And I think it's just like adding rocket fuel. But the asterisk on that is having the right community, the right mentorship.
100%.
Because
Yeah.
without it, it's garbage. And the other thing too is the reason I didn't do it is because I didn't believe in myself enough to invest in myself. That's actually a really hard pill to swallow in hindsight, because I used to always say, like, oh, I have an abundance mindset. Oh, I believe in myself. I bet on myself. But then it's like I didn't actually bet on myself. And the stakes were fairly low, right? Like, you write a check. Most people will guarantee that if you do the work, you will get the results, because, like, that is the secret to the success. There's no easy button.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was technical knowledge I was after. It wasn't. It was partnerships. It was being in proximity to people who think bigger, who know different things, who have a diverse background from me, people who have been where I want to go, right? It's very hard to learn from somebody who hasn't done the thing you're trying to do. And there are a lot of those out there, which is why I say asterisk the right people. If
Yeah.
you want to go out and raise capital, go find someone who has raised capital. If you want to go out and learn mobile parks, go find the person that has bought and sold mobile parks and go and figure out how to be in proximity to them.
Yeah. I think I had the same issue. I was in my W-2, made a good living, but I think the mindset of the W-2 in a little bit infiltrates. It's like, well, I got to pay for friends. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
Yes.
I can go on YouTube and get the
Yes.
information, right?
Yes.
But I think it's what I learned, and I don't know if this resonates with you or not, was um, there's a point at which information needs to go to integration. And when
Yes.
it does is when I plunk my money down. Like, okay,
Yes.
I can gather, like I could listen to Pace Morby or you talk all day about the asset classes that you invest in and learn something from it. But to
100%.
spend a day with you paid or spend a day with Pace paid is just a different level of integration. I'm able to take the knowledge, yes, but also put it into reality and really learn the stuff that's happening day to day and how to put that into my own reality.
100%. And, the crazy part of it is, so you'll have people that join the community, whatever, and they think it's an easy button. And it is the easy button, because
Mm.
I've condensed decades of experience, knowledge, expertise into maybe 50 hours, 100 hours of recorded, well thought out strategic content, right? But then you come to me, right? And you say, oh, but I'm not getting the results I want. The first question I ask you is, what have you done? They don't want to do the hard work. They think that joining any of these communities is easy button. That means now I'm going to have $1 billion portfolio. No, that's not what it means. It
Right,
means
right,
it's
right.
just significantly easier than if you try to figure it out yourself. You still have to drive the car. I can't drive it for you. I'm busy driving my own car, but I can sit in your passenger seat and I can tell you, like, hey, there's a pothole there, slow down, or hey, there's a cop sitting around the corner, make sure you stop fully at the stop sign, right? Like, I can tell you those things because I've already driven this road a million times. So
Yeah.
that's the difference. And I think when you approach it from that perspective and you're joining a community, that's how you really maximize the output of the community to you.
I love that. I love that. You're in the what I would say. Well, I guess social media generally has created a lot of geez, if I could speak, a lot of awareness around the whole multifamily and really real estate investing in general. Like Bigger Pockets started it, and it's exploded, obviously. But I still feel like you are sort of early stage or in the pioneering years of women in multifamily, women in real estate
Yeah.
investing. Are we at a point, because there's a lot of very prominent women in the multifamily space, in the real estate space now? Are we still in the pioneering phase, do you think? Or are we on equal footing, if you will, from a women's perspective? Like, what's the female perspective on being in the investing space right now?
We're not even close to seeing equity for minorities or women at the top. I can't tell you. I spoke on like 100 something stages last year, and I can count on two hands the number of stages that actually had true diversity represented on the stage. If you exclude my stages are always diverse. But if you exclude my stages, I spoke on less than 10 stages last year that really achieved diversity. Several of those stages that did achieve diversity are Pace Morby's, because he really cares about this. So he's intentional about this, right? And that's why I love working with him, is because he's very intentional. And it's a core value that we both share. Um, 31% of investors are women. That means we're making progress for sure, but there's still a
Sure.
long way to go. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a stage where I'm the only woman or the only non-white person speaking on that stage. And it's great. And I'm happy to pioneer that. I'm happy to, blaze this trail, if you will. But we just need to see more diversity and representation. And I bring this up to people when they ask me to speak on a stage. If I don't see representation, I ask them, hey, why are there no more women here? I'm happy to make introductions for you. Right. And how they respond tells me a lot about their character and who they are, because diversity for diversity's sake is not the goal. Diversity is important because I only want to work with the best. So either you're telling me that you don't believe half of the population exists in your definition of the best,
Mm.
or you just don't care enough to look for it. So you're working with mediocre people. And there are a lot of capital raising stages, and there are many that I don't speak on, and I look at the lineup and it's all men. And I'm like, you didn't even ask me to speak here. And you didn't ask any women to speak here, because I can run circles around every single person on your stage. And that's a problem, because it means you're not asking for the best and you're delivering. I mean, I don't know if I can curse, but you're delivering shitty value to your audience.
Yeah.
Like, you're not delivering, and that is not in line with our what we try to do, or the goal and the aim of everything we do is with excellence. This is not excellence. And so I think it's important, and I appreciate you asking this question, because I think it's important to discuss that when any of us see a stage that does not have women or minorities represented, we need to ask the questions about it, right? We need to say, like, hey, where are all the women? And find
Yep.
out their response, because your dollars matter, right? Like, these are oftentimes are money or profit generating events. So let's talk with our dollars and let's tell them what we're looking for.
How do you go from I don't even know. Is it a 50-50 split? It's got to be close, right? Women, men in this country, 50% women,
Yeah,
50% men.
I think there's actually like slightly more women, but it's
Ah,
pretty
good for
much
men.
50-50.
More options. Look at that.
There you
The
go.
what is the gap? How do you solve the gap? So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? If you're
Mhm.
going on stages, or if you're going to events and there's, one woman or
Yeah,
no women
yeah,
represented, bridging that gap,
yeah,
because there are incredible
yeah,
investors that are extremely successful, knowledgeable, that would add tremendous value, that are women, minorities, so on and so forth.
sure.
How do you go from 31 to 50% or closer to 50% of investors broadly being
Yeah.
women?
So the first is, let's open up the conversation and normalize talking about money and finances. When women are together, generally most women shy away from talking about money. They, by the time girls are 8 years old, they are steered away from STEM. And that means that they are not encouraged to talk about finance. They're not encouraged to talk about science, tech, engineering, mathematics, all of those. They're steered away, and it's in subtle ways. It's not, oh baby, no, you can't do this thing because you're a girl. It's not like that. It's very subtle, right? It's, oh honey, smile more. I need, like, we don't tell our sons to smile more. We tell our daughters to do that, right? We tell our daughters they need to be perfect. We tell our sons they need to be brave. And there's a big difference in that, because men will apply for a job that they're only 70% qualified for. Women will not apply for that same job until they're overqualified for it.
Yeah.
And so it starts at a very young age, and it's like a societal implication. And it is teaching girls from a young age to talk about money, to be fearless when they walk into rooms and not be intimidated, even if they're the only one there. But for me, and that's why Multify was born, is I really wanted to help people at the ground level, because I can't expect someone to speak on a stage about having $1 billion portfolio if they've never done a deal. That's impractical. But if I can help someone build $1 billion portfolio, and I can help put energy and effort at the ground floor to those women, minorities, anybody that's underrepresented, if I can put in that energy there, then I can help build so that by the time my daughters are old enough, they'll have enough role models that they can look to, and it's normalized that there are women in this room.
Makes sense. Great stuff. We're right at the hour mark. Where do you want to direct folks? Is there any events that are coming up that people can go to, or a website? What's the easiest way to learn more about you?
I always have a million events, but if you go to my Instagram, you can find me there. All of my links are in my bio, Veena Jetti, or you can join my free Facebook community, Mastering Multifamily with Veena Jetti. And anybody can join. We learn about investing. Obviously, there's a lot of multifamily focus, but we do a lot around capital raising and just business concepts in general.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.